You cannot simply believe a woman when she says a man raped me.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Is everybody in? I hope you are in, because the ceremony is about to begin. I wanted to talk today about what's been going on the last couple of days here with a couple of things, but I think we've had just about enough of this left-wing, self-righteous baloney that's been going on. And this is why I believe that in the midterms, I believe very strongly that Republicans will win by incredible margins. I mean, it will be a red wave. I can see that happening because we have such hypocrisy and such misplaced anger by the left wing. I mean, I'm talking completely misplaced anger by the left wing. These people are so incredibly hypocritical, it's not even funny. I don't even know how to describe it. I'll give you an example. Recently, Norm MacDonald, the comedian, had said something about the Me Too movement, essentially saying that he was glad that it's been kind of slowing down a little bit. And apparently a lot of people took offense to that. You know, he was trying to defend people who had gone through basically the counter. They had gone through like this counter oppression. You find a problem with my muscle shirt? Why? What's wrong with my muscle shirt? It's very comfortable. I could take off my shirt altogether. All right, who out there wants me to take off my shirt and I'll do a topless show? I'm serious. I'll do a topless show if you want, but I don't want to. Trust me, you don't want me to either. So what I'm saying is that, and besides, does it really matter if I'm wearing a muscle shirt? Seriously? I mean, I want you to listen to my message. I don't want you to just, take my message for what it is and don't worry about what I look like, okay? What I'm trying to say here is that you have someone like Norm MacDonald, who, first of all, he's a comedian. Okay, so he's going to say things that are controversial and, going to cause a lot of upheaval. You know how comedians are. They say things that are very controversial and very, they cause a lot of contention among people. So I think that's one thing. But, another thing is he's not really lying when he says that, you've got this movement that are essentially this Me Too movement about women. I'm not downplaying the fact that women are oppressed at times. And yes, there are, women do get raped sometimes and they get assaulted sometimes. Yes, that does happen and it's terrible. We should never excuse that kind of behavior by anyone. They should be prosecuted if that's in fact what happened. But I think what's happening is that you have these people in, especially on the left, and of course in the culture of Hollywood and entertainment, they have a very large pulpit, and it's a bully pulpit. They have a very large, influence. And this is one thing that kind of gets me. I wish, and I don't say this lightly, I want to have that kind of influence because I think people like me and like you, who don't necessarily agree with the Hollywood left view, we want to have that same voice because we want to let people see both sides of this and say, wait a minute, let's be reasonable about these things and talk them out. But the problem is the left doesn't want that. But because they have this big bully pulpit, they're allowed to just kind of say what they want and they shut us up. And now Norm MacDonald, who's part of the entertainment group out there, he's part of that, but he has a different viewpoint. He actually has a little more logical look into reality. And so what happens? He says, guys, you've got people, you're ruining people's lives over accusations. And, they didn't, the victims didn't have to deal with that. Now, don't get me wrong. A victim, like they were saying, well, the victim had to deal with something worse. Yes, possibly and probably. If they're not lying, then yes, they did go through something worse. Absolutely. But I think you have to understand that simply because they didn't go through something worse than the victim, or potentially worse, that doesn't mean that the person who is being accused of a crime or an impropriety doesn't deserve to have their voice heard. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve to have their due process. And that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to say this. It's controversial. Some people don't like hearing this, but I'm going to say it. A woman or a man, no one has the right to be merely believed by the authorities, by the people who basically take responsibility for dispensing justice. When you dispense justice in this country, there has to be a process that is followed, and that process has to be very carefully prosecuted. You cannot simply believe a woman when she says a man raped me or a man did something to me. I understand that it's a very sensitive subject. I understand that there's many loved ones. I would not even tell a loved one or a friend of that person, well, you don't have the right to believe them. Look, you have the right to believe whatever you want to as an individual. And I would say, look, if your loved one comes to you and says, I was raped or I was assaulted by a man, this person did something wrong to me and I want it made right. If they did that, then you know what? I would say to you, yes, as an individual, you have the right to comfort them, to believe them, and to give them all the support that they deserve. But I would also say that when it comes to the courts, when it comes to the decision makers, the ones that are going to actually decide what is truth, what really happened, they do not have the right to believe that woman. The woman does not have the right to be believed. You can't just simply give the woman that right, because there's something in this country called due process. It's constitutional protection of individual liberties. That person that is accused has the right to a trial. They have the right to be given due process and allow that person who accused them to stand before them and say, you did this to me. And there needs to be proof. There needs to be substantial enough proof beyond a reasonable doubt that in fact they did this thing to harm that other, that person who accuses them. And I think this is what we have to make. We have to be careful that we do not elevate a particular group of people. And this is why I get back to the identity politics and group identity. It's a religion now with the left wing. It's a religion, group identity. If you're black, or if you are a woman, or if you are Hispanic, or if you are anything, they'll come up with any group that suits them. If you are a member of the LGBT community, then you in fact are a protected group to them. But if you're white, of course, no, there's no protection for you. So it's also subjective, which is really funny. It's bad enough they want to group people by different categories and create this kind of a conflict, but then on top of it, they want to exclude other groups that they feel are not appropriate or don't fit their standards. It's very subjective and it's very unfair, and it's not constitutionally protected. The way they believe is not constitutionally protected, because in America, we have something called individual liberty that has nothing to do with groups. It has to do with the rights, the God-given rights, let me establish that, the God-given rights, of the individual. That's you and that's me. We have rights, and those rights are not to be infringed upon. Now, that doesn't mean that if a woman accuses a man of rape, that you don't believe her, that you say automatically there will be no trial, we're not going to take this seriously. No, you're going to take it seriously. A woman has the right to be taken seriously. A man has the right to be taken seriously when he says that a woman assaulted him in the same way. And so it's about, we take it seriously, yes we do, but we do not automatically believe a person for coming out with an allegation. And what's been happening is you've been having these people that are being fired from jobs and this and that and the other. Now, yes, a company has the right to fire someone that they believe is hurting their brand. I'm not saying they don't. But you also have to remember that if you prematurely fire a person based on an accusation and then come to find out later that person is found innocent, and then we find out that the accuser had been lying about it, how does that company deal with reparation to that person that they harmed? Now they're going to have to pay through the nose. And so you got to be careful. It's about being careful. But I would say to these people that are trying to hypocritically divide America and have this moral superiority, I would say to them, why would you do this to people? It's going to come back to bite you. It absolutely is. So what happened is, I guess Norm MacDonald, who had said these things about the Me Too movement, he was supposed to go on Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show, and apparently that has been canceled. I think he canceled it himself, but I think it was because they essentially told him, look, we don't want this, we don't want you. I think they forced him to cancel it. I think that's what happened. That's my opinion about it. But so what I wanted to say to you is that we have this situation where now Norm MacDonald is being treated unfairly, I believe. And I think what we need to do is we need to this is where I want to address directly those people of what I call the left-wing ministry of propaganda for late-night television. People like Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and a couple of the other ones there. These people are very disingenuous, very, very hypocritical. And I think some of them, I don't want to treat them like they're evil, but I think they're just ignorant. I think they don't understand what they're doing. They think they're doing the right thing, but they really are not. And I want to speak directly to them. And I want to speak directly to you, Jimmy Fallon, because you think you're such a beacon of hope and truth. You're really not. You speak a lot of ignorance. You tell people that you know what's right. You criticize the president every day in your monologue, and it isn't just a funny little thing like, oh, the president tripped today, or look at his hair, or whatever. No, it's worse. I mean, you make him out to be a complete bumbling idiot, and it doesn't matter that, yes, he's outspoken, he does say things that seem a little bit strange at times, absolutely. But the point is, if you look at his policies, if you look at his ideas, they're very good ideas, and they've already translated into incredible changes for the better in America. You're talking about some amazing improvements already, and it's been less than 2 years. It's just awesome, and so instead of acknowledging that and treating the president like, hey, you know what, he's doing I don't agree with everything, but I think that yes, there are some good improvements that he has made. No, they can't. They wouldn't dare do that. Because either they really believe that he's terrible and they just hate him so much, or they have to obey their handlers, the left-wing leadership that has told them, you better toe the line, people. And I hope, Jimmy, that you're not afraid of your overlords. I hope that that's not what the problem is here. I hope that you can eventually be objective, because right now you're not. You're not objective. You are acting irresponsibly. And I would say this to you. What made you, or Jimmy Kimmel, or any of these other late-night people, what made you the arbiters of what is morally good? I want to know that. I want to tell you who died and made you boss of morality in this country. Because I got to tell you, you're lacking severely in morality in a lot of areas. Remember, it was Hollywood. It was Hollywood that created the immorality of today's society. They're the ones that projected this idea that morality is subjective. It's more of a it's what they call a moral relativism. They don't care if sexual immorality and you name it. All the things that they make movies where people are shooting people constantly and there's murder and mayhem and all these things. I'm not saying it's illegal to make movies like that, but what I'm saying is that you do these things. You do these things, and then you turn around and try to say you're the moral arbiter, that you have the better ideas, that you're the one that should be paid attention to, and we should tell the conservatives to, nope, they're no good. You're no good because you have bad ideas, and even if you have better ideas, we don't care. This is what we believe to be right, and we are the champions of this, and you need to shut up, and that's the end. Well, the problem with that is that if you want me to get specific, Jimmy, I'll do that, and here's how I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to talk about the legal aspect of this because Roe versus Wade. We know that the Supreme Court allowed for this to be legal. I don't agree with it, but it is legal. So let's put the legal argument of abortion aside. The moral argument. Let's talk about the moral argument. You're going to tell me that it's morally superior to allow a woman to make a decision to kill her child. And don't say it's not a baby, because it is. It's been established medically that that child is a baby. Once it has a heartbeat especially. That's a child. That's a living human being. What gives you a moral authority when you champion those causes? When you champion the privilege, I'm not going to call it a right, even though the United States now calls it a right, it really isn't. According to God, you have given a woman the special privilege to kill her child. That's what you've done. Let's be real about this, and let's not sugarcoat this. This is exactly what's happening. You can try to deny it. You can try to say that that's not what's happening, but that's really what's happening. Women are telling the doctor, yes, I want this baby to be killed. That's really what they're doing. They may not say it that way, but does it really matter what they say? And that's basically the argument. This is the argument between the left and the right. They tend to put speech, language above behavior. And the problem with that is that language can sometimes be rough. And of course you see them criticizing Trump every day for using abusive language, what they call to be abusive language. But you know what? Behavior. Does it matter what a person says if they go to their doctor and send their child to the gallows? Does it really matter what they say? I could say the most eloquent words. Oh, like these eloquent words that were made up by some leftist. A woman's right to choose. Doesn't that sound so nice? It sounds beautiful, actually. It sounds heroic. It actually sounds heroic. That a man, that whoever came up with it's a woman's right to choose. How heroic is this? Wow. I feel, if I didn't know what they were actually doing, I would be right behind that little slogan. I gotta tell you, it sounds awesome. Because I do love women. I think, women do have the right to choose, just like men do. However, I don't think anyone has the right to choose to just kill a child. I'm sorry, I don't. But what I'm saying is, see how beautiful that language is, yet the end result of it is death? And this is what I'm getting at, is that sometimes we elevate language above behavior, and we try to treat words as though they are more important than behavior. And again, not to diminish the importance of words, because words do have importance. We know this. But I think, I hearken back to a scripture, a little story that was told by Jesus, who said, he told the story of the two sons. And the father had told both sons to get a job done, a particular job done. And he told the one son, the first son, and the first son said to him, "Oh, yes, father, I will get that done. I absolutely will." He was very agreeable to his father and nice. And he probably gave the father a good feeling to know that his son was agreeable to such a thing. Well, the second son, he went and told him, well, you got to get this done. And the second son complained about it. He was very angry. I don't want it. Why would I want to do that? He was very, very, very antagonistic towards his father about getting the job done. And so, of course, the father departed. And guess what? The first son that was agreeable didn't get the job done. He didn't do what he said he was going to do. And, and remember, this is the one that probably he made his father feel good by saying the right things, but he didn't do the right things. The second son that complained and was bitter about it actually went and did it. He did it begrudgingly, but he did it. He got the job done. He did what his father had asked him to do. And so you have to ask yourself, which one did God esteem above the other? Which one gets the most honor and deserves respect? Well, you have to remember that God always puts behavior above words. If a person might complain at first, they might say something that's a little not agreeable. It's because it's human nature sometimes to be a little agitated, disagreeable for whatever reason. Maybe they're having a bad day. I don't know. But I think that the better angels of our nature, come out when we know we have a responsibility ahead of us. And so this is what I would say. What I would say to anyone who puts words above deeds, I would say you better straighten up and you better understand what's more important. Because again, people can get angry and say things they don't want to say. Even sometimes we get angry and we just say things we didn't mean, because it's so easy to say something. It's so easy to come out with a hateful word or a disagreeable word. But it's a little bit more difficult to do something wrong or to not do something right. And so I think that's what we have to be very careful how we judge, and how the left is judging Trump in this regard. The left is saying because Trump says certain things that are antagonistic, that maybe will create division, although the real division has been created by the other side. We can see that. So what I would say to you is, what is more important? A cross word occasionally, or someone who does something egregious to harm someone irreparably in many cases? So what I would say is, again, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, what gives you the moral high ground? What, because you say things that sound really wonderful? Because you champion causes that you believe are morally superior to the causes of a conservative? Is that what you're trying to say? I would tell you, you are absolutely incorrect. I would tell you this very day, I would tell you that you have a lot to learn. You don't have a lot of credibility in this area. And I will hearken back to a conversation that I saw the other day between Jimmy Fallon and Cory Booker. Cory Booker is a senator from, I believe, New Jersey. Now look, this is the difference between Democrats and Republicans and left-wing and conservative. And again, I want to point this out because this is important for people to understand. This is something, and if you don't quite know how to articulate this, let me explain it to you so that maybe you can tell someone who disagrees with your viewpoint, maybe you can give them a little bit more insight to understanding what the difference is and why it is that in America we can't follow the Democrat viewpoint, because it doesn't follow American tradition and American, basically the American law in addition. So I'm going to explain this to you very carefully so that you can see it. Many of you probably already know, and I just wanted to say before I discuss this, I wanted to say, please, everybody that's watching this, share this video on your pages and share it to wherever you can. I want people to see this, even if it's not live, because it's important for us to get a little bit of education about certain very basic things. I don't want to get into the deep roots of a lot of this. I just want to get into the very basics of it. So this is what Cory Booker was trying to say. He was talking about basically democracy, in essence, saying that democracy, it was important to preserve democracy in our country, and that democracy is being eroded. And you saw, and he was very flowery about it. Of course, he made Jimmy Fallon genuflect, which that's not hard with people that Jimmy Fallon agrees with. But anyway, and it really brought something home to me. I'm watching Jimmy Fallon genuflect there and just act like he's, worshiping this concept of, he's worshiping the concept of democracy. And it sounds, again, this flowery word, it sounds so wonderful. Democracy. Oh, we are a democratic country. I want to reiterate this to Americans and let you understand the difference. Let me say this to you again. America is not a democracy. Again, let me say it. America is not a democracy. America is a constitutional republic with laws created to defend individual liberties. Liberties given by God. So there's a difference. And why the distinction? A democracy is what? It is majority rule. It is based on a majority of people in this country. If they have a particular viewpoint, they get to impose it upon the rest of America. The problem with that is that what if that idea is a bad idea? You can't let democracy rule for that very reason. Many people have believed in these bad ideas. And so what do? Here's what we do. What we do is we decide that we can't have democracy. Because again, what if the idea is a bad idea? And yet, because a democracy believes in that idea, we have to follow it because a majority has ruled upon it. We can't have that. We need to have laws We have laws. We need to have laws that protect individual liberty from those majority mob people that do that. And I'll give you an example. You know, it used to be in this country, before any of us were ever born, hundreds of years ago, it used to be that, a majority of people thought that slavery was perfectly okay. Okay? Now, and I want you to think about this very carefully now, and this is the crux of the difference between democracy and, constitutional republic. How was slavery ended? How did we end slavery? That's a very simple question, and the answer is very simple. Slavery was ended by a very small group of individuals. In fact, it started with one individual, Abraham Lincoln, who wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, essentially freeing the slaves. Now, did a majority of Americans vote on that? Absolutely not. So what I'm trying to tell you is that it was one man that stood up for what was right, and he knew what was right. And then, of course, we made laws later that made sure that people knew, hey, look, the slave is now free. They are no longer in bondage to other men. And so we had to have laws. It wasn't a majority of people who made that decision, because if we had allowed it to be a democratically controlled decision, Lord knows how long it would have taken for slaves to be freed. Who knows, maybe they never would have been. I don't have that answer, but I can tell you they would have been slaves a lot longer. We would have been struggling with this a lot longer as a nation. So I think we have to understand that we must protect our individual liberties with a constitutional republic. And we got to stop talking about this concept of democracy. It's a bad concept to continually beat into the heads of people. We got to have these conversations. We have to stop telling people that democracy is superior. This is what we need. Our democracy is eroding, and this is what, and you know what? Maybe Cory Booker is right. Maybe Obama is right that democracy is eroding, but it should. Not maybe it should, it absolutely should. We don't need democracy in this country. We need a constitutional republic. And it's another reason why we don't have a straight up and down popularity contest vote for the presidency. Because we know that if we did that, sometimes the popular opinion is not the best one. We need to have an electoral college where rationality often rules. And it's much better. There's so many ways that it's better. I'm not going to get into it in this particular video, but I'm just going to tell you guys that you really need to think about things, and this is how you need to express it to your friends, to those who would say democracy is superior, and if I have to hear this again, I'm gonna like rip my hair out. It's just these people, Hillary won the popular vote. I don't care. I don't care if Hillary won the popular vote. How did she win the popular vote? That's what's more important. She won it because the left and the right coast, the coast where New York City is and where California is, where Los Angeles is, those people were brought up in a public school system, and they were indoctrinated to believe that the Democrats were superior, and therefore they were indoctrinated into voting for mostly Democrats. That's not a good way to elect a president. So what we needed was a plurality of people to vote for the president, not a majority. And there's a difference. A plurality means that there's many different groups of people who voted for President Trump. For example, we had, and I'm talking about Democrats as well. We had, those in the industrial Midwest who were blue-collar workers who wanted jobs again. They wanted to be able to work in jobs that they were good at doing, and that had gone away because of high regulation. So what did Trump say? Trump said, I'm going to get your jobs back for you. I'm going to reduce regulations, and I'm going to get you back to work, and you're going to be happy for it. More food on the table, and more people are going to be happy. And so this is what happened. So they said, I'm going to give this guy a shot. And then you had what? Then you had a certain population in the black community that he told, what did he say? He said, what the hell do you have to lose? Have they done anything for you in the last 40 or 50 years? What have they done for you? What have they done? They've increased poverty levels. They've increased unemployment. They've done nothing for you. They made all these promises right up to and through Obama. They made all these promises to you, and they failed you. So you know what? give me a try because you have absolutely nothing to lose. I'm going to do things. I'm going to let loose this economy. I'm going to do things that they have never done. And I'm going to give you a chance at least. I'm going to give you a fighting chance. I'm not even sure that Trump knew at that moment how good things were going to be so quickly. I don't even think he knew that. But he did know that it would be better eventually. So what did he say to them? He said, what the hell do you have to lose? You give me a shot and I'm going to make you believers. I'm going to make you happy. And what did they do? Some of them did. They said, you know what? I'm going to give this guy a try because the other side hasn't helped me any. My family is still struggling after all these years. Generation after generation, our cities are crumbling. And what do we have? So you know what? I'm going to give this guy a shot. And you know what happened? It's starting to work out. Things are getting better. Unemployment in the black community is lower now than it's been since they've been recording it in history. I want you to think about that. So this is what we need to do, is spread that message that it's important to protect liberties of the individual and not get into this group identity. And, it creates so much division because you know what? I'm an individual. I don't know about you, but I'm an individual. I don't want to identify as white. I don't want to identify as just a man. I don't want to identify as someone who is somehow an oppressor because of my group identity, because I happen to fit into one of these categories. Okay, that is disgusting, and it's dividing our country, and it's absolutely no good. And I would say that anyone that believes in that should be ashamed, and you really need to think about what you're doing, because it's awful. It is absolutely awful. So here's what I'm going to say to you and everyone. I'm going to say that if you don't agree with what I'm saying, I want you to look deep in your heart. I want you to search your heart for something that maybe you haven't ever searched for. Truth. Start looking at other opinions a little bit more carefully. I'm not saying you have to agree with something offhand, but study it. Actually do some research, because man, you have not even touched the top of that rabbit hole yet. You haven't gone down into the rabbit hole to understand what's happening. But I will say this also. I've been listening to a gentleman who I think is brilliant in his analysis. He can get a little bit wonky at times, and because he's a professor and he gets a little deep sometimes. But if you listen to him, you get a lot of understanding. And his name is Jordan Peterson. This guy has a good understanding of how the group dynamic is destroying not only America, but Canada and the rest of the free world. It's destroying our world. I mean, it's the idea of groupthink. You have to agree with this majority of people, this whole democratic concept, and it's really destroying America. So let's fix this problem. I really think that it's important to understand that. Let's fix America. Let's get away from the concept of democracy, which destroys individual liberty, and let's start talking. Let's start a dialogue. If you are someone who is listening to me, you don't agree with what I'm saying, let's have a dialogue instead of a shout fest or a shame fest. Let's have a conversation, because I don't see you doing it. Also, I want to say before I go, I want to tell you that I'm on the Jingoist right now, and if you're not listening, if you're not watching this from the Jingoist page on Facebook, go ahead and visit the Jingoist. I want you to like the Jingoist page, because the gentleman who started the Jingoist, his name is Dominic Luquette. Dominic is brilliant. This man he comes up with incredible memes and concepts that are not just funny, but they're thought-provoking as well. They really make you think. And that's what we need. We need to start thinking instead of being inane and just angry all the time. Let's start thinking, guys. Let's start examining the truth instead of, believing lies. So I want to tell you again, go to the Jingoist, like the Jingoist page, and you're going to be thankful to me to listen to this, that you went there and did that. So once again, this is brought to you by the Jingoist. Go to the Jingoist. That is of course, THE, and then JINGOIST, the Jingoist, everyone. I'm telling you, it's awesome. So if anybody has any questions for me, go ahead and ask now. I will try to answer your questions to the best of my ability. And go. So, yeah, I see some of this stuff, man. I gotta tell you, I see these things on on TV, and it's just amazing to me just how foolish people can be, and they believe this stuff. And I get tired of, I go on because my girlfriend, she loves to watch the late night comedy. I understand why. It's funny. You try to entertain yourself and be maybe have a little bit of levity in this serious world now. But the problem is, it's no longer comedy on these shows. It's mostly propaganda. It's anti-Trump and anti-conservative propaganda. That's all it is. They're trying to create a narrative here and push this narrative to the point where they want people to just, look, you got to believe it, that's it. And if you don't, we don't care if we're funny, we're pushing this agenda, and that's just the way it is. And that's the problem. You don't have reality. Reality doesn't exist. Reality is subjective to these people. They don't even care. It's what they want, and it's what they're going to get, and they don't even give a crap. So I think that's the problem. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. I'll be on for another couple minutes here. And if you want to ask me something, what do you want to listen to all day? Alan, thanks for stopping and listening to. What do you want to listen to? You mean, are you talking about the late night shows, or I don't know what you're referring to, but yeah, I got to tell you, man. This is just. Look, I'm a regular guy. I don't want to come across as, some expert on geopolitics, but I mean, a lot of this stuff is common sense, and we just have lost our minds. And I don't like to see the hatred, no matter what you believe in. I don't want to see hatred among people. I want to see people actually come together and have conversations. And we can't have conversations anymore because everyone is so keyed up and they're fighting for their side, and it's funny how they, as soon as Trump gets elected, all of a sudden everything is falling apart and the world's going to come to a crashing halt, and everything is just, but then again, I mean, if you think about it, the left always has this doom and gloom prophecy concept all the time about everything when it comes to, global warming phenomenon, everything. These people are just, it's constant. There is no rest for the weary. It's a constant siege with these people, and they don't even, a lot of them don't even understand what they're doing. A lot of them believe that it's simply, we have to do something or else the world's going to fall apart. If we don't put a stop to global warming, it's all over. Our children will never enjoy, having a nice day out at the park ever again. And they don't even get it that, the world has been cooling and heating back and forth and over again for millions of years, and you're worried about, a few decades, things are going to just come to a crashing halt. I think if they really studied science the way it is, I mean, I think you'd never in a million years think the way you do if you really studied it. I'll just give you one thought. You could ask your friends this if they tell you, global warming is killing everything, the carbon dioxide levels are out of control. But I would ask you this: what is the function of carbon dioxide? What do trees and plant life? What do they breathe? How do they survive? Do they survive on oxygen, or do they survive on carbon dioxide? And what do humans breathe? Do we survive on carbon dioxide or oxygen? So the point is, it's a symbiotic relationship. We know the answer to that. The answer is that obviously plants breathe in carbon dioxide. Now, it would stand to reason that if more carbon dioxide was present in the atmosphere and you had some plant life on the planet Earth, the plant life would increase to adjust, because again, God made this planet to adjust. Plant life would adjust to essentially breathe or suck up the carbon dioxide from human breath, and from wherever else it's coming. And so it would make up for it. We would actually have more plant life, and you would actually be able to forest the deforestation more quickly. So there's a lot of things that people don't quite understand. They think that we're destroying the earth when in fact we're just slightly changing it, but ultimately for the better. Because someday, even if the earth is, let's say the earth is heating up as they say it is, well, if that's the case, then eventually some of that north country in Canada, the northern parts of the earth, will be warmer most of the year, which means that we'll actually be able to farm some of that land that is unfarmable right now. So you're talking about, it's amazing how they have like this all or nothing concept of the planet Earth. Like there's, if you are, there's a concept called the conservation of matter and energy, right? Matter is neither created nor destroyed. It's only transferred from one phase to the next. It goes from matter to energy, like a nuclear weapon. When a nuclear bomb goes off, it goes from matter to energy. We know this. Nothing is ever lost or gained in that situation. It's just transferred. So you have to understand that it's the same with the planet Earth. When you lose one thing on planet Earth, you gain something else. That's just the way things are. And that's the way God made our universe to operate. So instead of worry, let's find ways to adjust. We're never going to be able to stop it because we're just not big enough. I think we think too highly of ourselves that we are going to be going to make such an incredible change that we're going to destroy it. No, actually, we're not. We're just going to have to adjust to what the Earth does. But it doesn't mean that we have to give billions and trillions of dollars to developing countries that have not done a good enough job to develop themselves. And that's really what this comes down to. It comes down to wealth distribution. There was an old joke. Who out there remembers Sam Kinison? Sam Kinison was a comedian back in the 80s and 90s, and he told a joke years ago. Now, it's not 100% truth, but I mean it's kind of the concept behind it is true though, and I thought it was funny. He asked the question, why are we bringing food to these countries in Africa? These places in northern Africa especially. Why are we bringing food to these people? And he used the example of all these trucks, showing up to the desert and stopping and basically saying to the people, okay, we got some food here, but then they ask the people there, we can't bring it. We're going to stop bringing you food because you're in the desert. Essentially, you're living in the desert. It stands to reason that it's going to be more difficult for you to produce food where you are. So you might want to move to a place where there's more food. Or possibly if you can't move, maybe you can come up with some other resource, develop another resource where you can trade for food. So, every place on the planet Earth has some resource that they can either mine or they can develop a technology, what have you, and they can use that to trade for goods from other places that have other resources. That's basically the ingenuity of humankind. We were smart enough to figure that out, that, hey, you know what, I have grapes over here, but I don't have oil. Well, you know what? Those people that have the oil, they want the grapes. So let me send them some grapes, and they're going to send me some oil. It's as simple as that. That's how it works on the planet Earth. If you haven't figured that out by now, I don't know what to tell you. And yes, there are sometimes problems that can't be simply solved by those things. Sometimes there has to be, an intervention a time or two. But the point I'm making is, as a general rule, we have to live our life by the general rules. If you try to live by the exceptions, that's not a good numbers game to play. It doesn't usually work in your favor. It's kind of like, if you're in a casino and let's say you're playing poker and you've got three of a kind, but you have the opportunity to get a dirty royal. Well, you know what? You already have the three of a kind. That's your odds. You play the odds. You already have it. It's not going to give you as much as you could get with a dirty royal or a royal flush, but the point is you have three of a kind. You have the opportunity. It's a guaranteed thing. You're guaranteed to get something. Usually you want to play that hand, unless you're so close once in a while maybe. But for the most part, if you're playing where you have something in hand, you're not going to go for the high risk in that situation because you know that chances are it's not going to happen. And so this is what we have to think about when it comes to anything, when it applies to anything in the world. So what I would say to you is, let's be wise. Let's think a little more carefully. Let's have conversations with people that don't agree with us, and let's try to think things out instead of the anger and the bitterness. I'm getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of the hatred. I'm getting tired of turning my TV on and seeing the media constantly browbeat Trump and say terrible things about him and try to create rumors and dredge up these horrible things just to try to harm him instead of actually praising him for the good things that he's done. All right? I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of seeing the late night, what I call the late night left-wing ministers of propaganda, spread their baloney and their lies and their hatred, telling nasty jokes about him constantly. You know, they spend most of their show doing this, and it's disgusting. And they're bringing on people on their shows that have a pure hatred for the president, and they're agreeing with him, and they're treating it like it's such a, this whole resistance concept. Like, like Jimmy Fallon, he's got this serious look on his face when he talks to Cory Booker, and he's like, oh, yes, we need democracy. Oh, we're in danger. Can save us, Cory. Save us, Spartacus. And it's just disgusting. It's disgusting. So anyway, I guess I'm going to end this, but share this with your friends. Get people to understand what's happening in this country. We can be a little smarter. We can be a lot smarter. And we can love people and still disagree with them. Please understand that. We can love our neighbor. We can love our enemy. In fact, Jesus told us, love your enemies. You can love them, but that doesn't mean you have to agree with them. What you do is you show them the truth in love. You show them what works. Instead of creating an enemy and creating a deeper rift between you, try to show them in a loving way, in a straightforward way, not a hateful way. I know it's difficult. Believe me, it's difficult. I know this, but we have to try. We have to try to bring the truth. And you know what? If you're constantly in prayer for the truth, if you're constantly looking to reveal the truth to these people, it's going to come eventually if you just keep on pressing in and praying. Remember something. Trump was an answer to our prayers. Donald Trump was that answer to our prayers. He is giving us the things we prayed for. And for how long we waited for this. And here it is. And yes, the enemy's coming hard. Let's be honest. The enemy's not going to give up. The enemy is not going to just drop his weapons and say, well, we've been defeated. Let's go home now. That's not the way it works. The enemy is relentless. But remember, you can still turn around some of the enemy. You can turn some of them around from their wicked ways and show them, hey, you're thinking the wrong way. You're not doing this right. We already have examples of that. We have examples of people who voted for Barack Obama. They even voted for Hillary. And then they found out later, man, was I hoodwinked. And so what happened? They came to see the light, and now they are walking in it. And remember, that's something else I wanted to mention, the walk away movement. You should watch some of the videos from the walk away movement. It's amazing. They tell these incredible stories of how they were turned around, how they finally saw the light and saw the truth. And now they're walking in it, and it's going to be fantastic for them. But we need more people. We need more people to come forward and talk about that. We need all the help we can get from all different walks of life. I don't care where you come from, the black community, the white community, the Hispanic community, the gay community. I don't care where you're coming from. We need people in those communities to step forward and say, I see the light now. And I am not on the side of the bigots, the true bigots. The true bigots are the ones that use group identity to try to destroy this country. And we're done with it, aren't we? So spread the message. I want you to share this video. This is Michaelantonio, and I want to talk to you about something very serious today. Did you know that every time somebody doesn't like my videos, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, that a tree falls in the forest and dies? Next time it could be your fault. So, let's not make that mistake, okay? What are you going to tell Mr. Tree back there, huh? What about him? Yeah, that's right. So, go ahead and do what I told you, all right? Subscribe and hit that notification bell at least, okay? Bye, everybody.